So we're not meeting in class today, but I still would like you to work on still have the work day that I had originally planned. I just planned being there kind of on the other side of the screen with you. So workday, what I want to do today is use the methods that we've learned up to now to create digital images. So what I'm talking about is now that you've learned how to be able to draw with shapes and that those drawings could make some interesting potential stills. I do write combined processing and another image making software program of your choice. So you would take a still and then you could bring it into Photoshop and you could combine it with other stills, or you could just create like a grid of a bunch of different stills. But the point is, I want you to play. I want you to spend a good amount of time trying different shapes. Try making a curve or a Bezier interactive. Try making a begin shape, end shape interactive. Don't stress about the numbers. Just take a shape and plop in some numbers. Don't try to actually plot it out. Just put in some numbers. Make some of it mouse X, mouse Y, and see what you get. Maybe then, you could even add like a couple of them and just sort of play. So in this example here, I'm including that fading rectangle. And so this is just kind of combining things like we've learned, all right? So I've taken a Bezier and I've made it somewhat interactive, and there's an opacity there that's happening from the fading rectangle. So when I hover over, I can get like darker parts, and then I can move and I can get lighter parts. And I've also added it so that when I press on the mouse, it saves the still. And I will show you that in a second. Okay, so, but then I could do another one. I could like copy this. And I'll give this one a different fill. I'll make this one like a, oops, sorry, not a fill, but I'm doing strokes. I'll do a stroke of 255, but with a low opacity like that one. And let's see. Paste it in. I'm not saying you have to work with Beziers, but I just want you to play. So what if this time I'm going to move all my numbers over? Actually, I'll make some of these just completely different. So I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to make, like, I'll make this one mouse Y minus 200. See what it gives me. Make this plus 100. Make this minus 100. Just kind of go, and maybe it's going to be a total disaster. Maybe I'll end up liking it, and then just kind of keep tweaking it. Let's see what it gives me. Okay, so maybe I end up finding a moment where there's something that I like now with the second Bezier. And I could just click and I save a frame. Or perhaps I want to use a different shape. I could bring in a different shape. So the save frame code that I have on Blackboard, we will get into this whole if statement and mouse pressed and all of that. But all you need to know for right now is to use this code and make sure it goes within the draw. All right, so it's if, and then we have in parentheses, mouse pressed, the P is capitalized, open curly bracket, and then our save frame. And remember what this does is this allows the frames that are saved to be within a folder processing will create called images. The 4 hashtags is so it doesn't override itself. If I just put 1 here, then it will only, like the word one, like O-N-E, then whenever I click, it'll only call my images, saved images 1, and they'll override each other. So this allows you to create numerous ones that are going to be based on the frame number. I put in the extension JPEG, but you could make it a TIFF or a PNG. Then it has a closing curly bracket that goes with this one, and then this is the closing bracket for my draw. So this whole little thing goes inside the draw. And let's take this, oh no, whatever, I'll keep this on. And just to illustrate, so now when I am drawing, I press with the mouse, and drawing, press with the mouse. Let's close this out, and I go up to Sketch, Show Sketch Folder, and here's my folder processing made for me called Images, and here are all my stills in here that I saved every time I press the mouse. So look at the 2 artists that I have on Blackboard. Cluj is one of the artists, and he's using processing and just to make portraits. So you could kind of imagining just like taking lots and lots of stills. Maybe this is a triangle, taking lots of stills, collaging it together to make a kind of portrait. Holger Lippmann is another artist that he uses processing to create digital images, and you can click around. You see just like tons of his work. He has a new site and an old site. And so if you look at his stuff, what's interesting is they kind of look like landscapes at a distance, but once you get in closer, it's just lots of rectangles. So you can imagine like this would probably, you would have to do like different stills, but like you could take um, draw with a rectangle, make a whole bunch of these shapes, save a still, then change the colors, do a whole bunch of movement. So in this case, you're leaving a trail and save the still. And then you could bring it into Photoshop and you could do masking to combine them or any techniques that you know to be able to combine them. So look over the work of Holger Lippmann and you can do like a search and look for, under, he has just his work under a lot of different varieties. So it almost looks like a Van Gogh. I also just wanted to point out on Facebook, there's this group that I belong to, Creative Coding with Processing and P5JS. And this is a fun place, I think, just to kind of go and for inspiration and see what people are doing who are working with processing and P5JS. And I saw some people post stuff. Sometimes people post questions. They're asking for help. There are people of all different levels on here. Someone has their stuff from open processing. There are newbies here, and there are professional people who've been, working in this field. Holger Lippmann, the person I just said, check him out. He's posting some of his work here. So you do have to ask permission to join this group, but it could be a cool place to go and look for inspiration. So I don't have anything in particular in mind that I'm looking for from this project. I basically want you to play. I'll show you. So like this is a past an example from later on the semester when we would use processing and make it into a product. So she made this huge blanket, and so these are all that's coming from processing. And for these two, this is all coming from processing, and then they added text and they made it into t-shirts, obviously. So you could do something like that. You could do something where you're making just like some images. This all could just be on one sheet of paper or one different image. You really have a lot of freedom to do whatever you want. If you want to use this as a background for a product, add some text to it, or maybe take your processing and put it into text, or if you want to make an abstract image, or if you want to see what it would look like on a t-shirt, you want to mock it up, anything like that. Just what I'm asking is you kind of spend a couple of hours between now and the next class and you play with processing. Think about it, what potential you could have between the interaction of drawing and saving stills and bringing them into another program and making it into a different level of the piece. All right, I know it's kind of vague, but as I said, I don't have a particular idea in mind. I just want you guys to play.